Hello and welcome to Confidently Wrong, a show by regular dudes talking with confidence about content we have no right to speak about with any kind of authority, but do it anyway. I'm Wesley Nakamura, and as always I'm joined by award-winning director Brian Redondo and Savon Jones aka Captain Bonnie. This is episode 150 and we're reacting to the entire first season of X-Men 97. I'm confident that it's going to be the best show you've ever listened to, and well, hey, if it's not, you can always ask us for a refund.
Incredible!
Hello, gentlemen.
Hola.
Hey, we're back
Howdy.
in business. We're ready for, sun's out, guns out time. Savon's wearing the tank top already.
I don't got the guns. Maybe I got the buns.
I got a sourdough bun right here in my belly.
I got the bakery, the armory. You heard me? Holla at your boy. I got the toiletries. I got it all.
The toiletries. Yo, it's the end of the school year, so like I'm just eating real
so
bad.
sun's out, nuns out.
Oh
For
man,
all the Catholic school kids.
just eating all the bad foods, at the end of the year, like pizza and donuts and cake and like all good times. Yo, I think this week I literally gained like 3 pounds on top of like the weight that I'm not trying to gain right now. I'm trying to lose right now. So, oops, went the wrong way this week, friends.
If I owned a strip club that had a patio, summertime would be sun's out, one's out.
Yeah,
That'd
that'd be good.
Ooh, yeah, I'll
That
be
would
up
be
in
good.
there.
Though that'd be super awkward, outdoor strip club. Like, I don't know.
Hey, no, I don't think so.
What's that famous one? Magic something? In
Magic
Magic
City?
City? Why
Yeah,
do we
you
all
could-
know that?
Because I listen to rap music.
Wasn't that well, I know it because of Lou Williams got in trouble for going there.
Oh yeah,
Got that
he went
lemon pepper.
He went and got the lemon pepper
You
wings
got
at
the
the
lemon
strip
pepper?
club. Because he left.
He left the bubble.
He left the bubble. Didn't he leave to go to like a funeral or something?
Yeah, and then he just
on
stopped
the way
by.
back from
Oops.
the funeral, he stopped at Magic City.
You just had to pop in on the gram, get that lemon pepper, show the
Yeah,
people.
didn't he,
Jack Harlow.
he recorded it, right? Yeah.
I think Jack Harlow recorded or something.
Oh man, my boy, really. Lemon Pepper Lou. Shout out to Lemon Pepper Lou. Legendary. Thanks for reminding
He had the
me. of
leaning,
that.
Good wings
that
are hard
leaning
to
jumper. He had the leaning jumper down pat. All right, let's get started. Today's episode, we are talking about X-Men 97.
Yeah.
We're happy to come revisit this this animated show on Disney Plus. We talked about the first couple of episodes a couple months ago, but now that the first season has wrapped up, and we've seen so many people online talking about how much they've enjoyed it, it's pretty cool to come back to this and be able to talk about it.
Jumping on the bandwagon.
Hey,
The muty bandwagon.
We're just delivering what the people want. That's all, Brian. All right, so first things first, we did talk about those first impressions at the beginning. We talked about how the animation style had been upgraded, but the tone and the characters they tried to really stay very much in tune with how the old show was from back in the 90s. And really, this is just season 6 of the previous show. It's not really a reboot or anything different. They've really just continued on with the saga, bringing in all these comic book storylines that I've never heard of into the show and executing them in kind of their most distilled, character moments and action moments. So how did you enjoy this first season kind of as an overall view? And then we'll dive into those nitty gritties. Feel free to do some spoilers here. I think a lot of people who have seen the show have seen most of it. And then, those of us, those folks who haven't, maybe they'll catch up as we come along. And, we won't spoil the very, very ending maybe, but I think we could talk about most of the episodes.
Nah,
Sav,
I'm spoiling that ending. Y'all better get with the program.
how did you enjoy the first season of the show?
I had a really good time. I kind of, again, like most stuff, I try to go in with reasonable expectations, don't build it up to be something that it's not. But I was pleasantly surprised across the board. I liked the animation. I liked that they kept that vintage art style, but still had really dope modern effects. I said that in the previous episode. That held up to me very well. Overall, I had a really good time. I loved seeing all the different mutants, the character moments, the fun powers. I know you mentioned in one of your responses there was something you wasn't crazy about, but the really soap opera dramatic dialogue, I actually was a huge fan of. So I'm walking away from this thinking, man, they did a really good job of capturing the essence of what an X-Man story is, but they really kept it grounded in that 97 visual aesthetic and world, and I thought they just knocked it out the park. I just had a really good time. Every episode, I was excited. I had moments where I'm like, oh, I felt the full emotional spectrum. To me, if it can elicit those reactions, they did a lot of things right.
You're saying not at all nostalgia bait for you.
No,
this
because
felt like a really like clear, they wanted to tell a story and they were able to do it.
Yeah, the nostalgia bait part didn't really hit for me because we've talked before when that show was
because
really
he wasn't alive.
No, but reruns were on nonstop.
He was a zygote when it came out.
No, but the reruns were on Fox all the time. So even as a kid in the 90s, I remember that intro and stuff, but I was still too young to follow the story super closely. And again, I say by the time I was of age, X-Men Evolution really kind of took the place as my childhood X-Men show. And then I didn't really have an interest in rewatching it because I just learned about all the production and budget issues that actually just led to a kind of low quality show. Or by the time I was an adult, once I became aware that, Wolverine never slashes anybody with his claws because no one can use their badass mutant powers because it's a Saturday morning cartoon, that stopped me from saying, I'm going to go back and rewatch this. So this wasn't...
But then on the finale...
It was nostalgia bait on the theme, basically. But outside of the theme, this was just something that was fresh and new for me. So I approached it with probably a little bit of a different lens than y'all.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, like, weren't there so many jaw-dropping moments this past season?
Dude.
Like, when you have people all over talking about Gambit saying, remember my name, and stuff like that, and Magneto swooping in, having romance with Rogue. Like, people were talking about this. That's how you know this show exceeded expectations and excelled at what it was doing best and was exceptional in all the right ways. And I mean, obviously, I'm a homer here, so for me, it's 100% nostalgia bait, and it delivered exceedingly.
I'm here for it.
How long can you keep that bit going? Let's see.
Oh God!
I think I'm exhausted already.
I think you should exit while you're ahead.
Excuse me,
Wes. What about you, pimp?
I mean, I think it was, to me, I don't know what I thought going in it was going to be. I think in general it was like a really fun show. Like the action sequences were really cool, and they did, I think, pull a little bit from, like kind of an anime style, sort of like hopped into this sometimes, with in terms of like the blasts that were happening. I think
and the action.
Cyclops like shoots his blast at somebody else who has plasma powers. Maybe it's Bastion.
They have a good old Dragon Ball Z beam struggle.
So things like that, and then the way that they cut it, I think, as the series went on, it definitely felt like they were, again, kind of borrowing a little bit from more modern action animated titles where, you're cutting to like close up on face, slash happens, more close, someone flies, like there's all these things happening. You see like big, environmental effects. And so that made it cool.
Yeah, no, I can't tell. I was like, I can't tell what you're like. Is this a good thing?
Oh, I'm sorry. No, yeah, I thought that was great. It made it made it visually just fun to watch all of these fight sequences and action sequences.
Agreed.
Yeah, caught up with the times.
Yeah, right. And I mean, it didn't feel.
You couldn't even have good fights back then. People couldn't punch each other.
Yeah, but and what I'm saying is, it didn't feel like, it didn't belong in this show. Like you could sort of go too far with that and end up being like, that's not how this show should go. But like, it made sense. You could have
My Adventures with Superman is kind of what you're saying. Like,
yeah,
where it just feels completely different.
Yeah, it like could take you out of it. And I don't think it did. I think they did a great job like making it so it still had like kind of the weight of an American show as well, or an American made show. So I don't know. I enjoyed it. I thought a lot of different characters got to shine. Like you get time with Rogue, you get time with Cyclops and Jean Grey as Scott and Jean Grey, right? Like as their kind of married self.
Everybody gets some shine. That was really one of the best parts of the show.
I think a lot of them do. I think a couple people kind of get sidelined a little bit.
Some people were short-ended.
a little bit, and that's okay. I mean,
I
there's
would love
like
to talk about that a little bit more in
okay.
depth, but
I mean, there's like
later.
15 characters. Like, not everybody's maybe going to get the same
Yeah.
amount of time. But I agree with Sav that like for the most part we got a lot of info on we got a lot of moments with a lot of different characters.
I mean, wasn't the old show half the time Jean uses her powers once and passes out? Like
Yeah.
Wolverine runs to try to slash somebody and just gets knocked across the room. Like I don't know a lot about the old shows, but I know enough to know they were doing a lot of them characters dirty. No one got to be a true badass. And I'm very curious to who y'all think got shafted, but that's a different combo. Let's keep it moving.
Yeah. Well, okay, we talk. Well, let's open that up a little bit later. I think, in general, I'll save it maybe for the next question, but I wasn't overall like, man, this show is like amazing, like top tier on the level of whatever other animated show you want to talk about, or even just show. Like, it's not Breaking Bad level or The Wire,
What is top tier animation?
What the hell are you
I don't know. Like Blue Eye, I thought Blue Eye Samurai was like up there in terms of top tier. Like, oh man, I would watch this again. Arcane, I would watch that again. Like shows like that where it's just like, man, I'm super invested. Like, I really want to know what happens next, and just like I'm just enjoying like all the like deep character moments. I'm enjoying the action, that stuff. I thought there were some to me parts of this that were a little bit bumpy, and I think we could talk about that in the next question. Do you guys disagree?
Kind of.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Disagree.
All right. And part of this, I want to say up front, this also could just be me because like
probably
my personal schedule and my personal brain, like this thing in here, like may have not been in the best 100% functional state. Like, not that I'm broken or anything, or like I'm not, I feel like that was kind of vague. I'm not sick or anything. Yeah, I'm just like I've been just super busy and like
this is a feature, not a bug.
Yeah. So it's just been busy, and so like I've sort of had to break up the time that I've been watching it, and sometimes I'm not even getting through an entire episode at once. Like sometimes it takes me like 2 or 3 days to watch like an entire episode. So that was also, I think, messing with like how I was perceiving the show. So let's get into it then. The show has gotten a ton of positive reception. You two, are foremost among that. But I've seen tons of like headlines, articles, Twitters, threads about how X-Men is probably one of the best versions of X-Men that people have seen, whether that's comic book, movie, animated. They're really enjoying how this season went. I think a lot of that has to do with the tone of the thing, the nostalgia of it all, the way that they sort of lean into teaching us like and showing us who these characters are and then putting them in possible positions. But what do you think made this show work? Sav, what's in it for you?
I think what ultimately made this show work was that, honestly, I think part of what worked was that they embraced the camp. I want to spin the block back on that comment I made about the dialogue being very dense and dramatic and comic book pulpy. Like every time Beast opens his mouth, it is the most ridiculous shit I've ever heard, but I love it. Every time Magneto opens his mouth, it's like he's about to give a speech at the Million Man March or something. And this man had a speechwriter and he's got like his cue cards and stuff because he's just monologuing. And I feel like
Million Mutant March.
Yeah, there we go. Yeah, that Million Mutant March, you hear me? But like, I feel as dramatic as it is, it works for the tone of the show. It works for it being like almost like because the show almost has like soap opera vibes, right? Of, will Magneto and Xavier ever figure things out? What about Scott and Jean? What about Wolverine in this love
really
triangle?
Does.
What about Storm and Forge? The
now
adversary
I can't
demon.
That.
Find out next time. It's like Days of Our Lives. But like it's good, like I don't know, like every time Magneto gave these ridiculous dramatic ass speeches, I low-key also got like I wanted to half roll my eyes, half be like, yo, he talking that shit right now. And I felt like the show had moments like that top to bottom, whether it was Magneto, Xavier, Charles, Bastion. The characters are amazing at like monologuing. So I actually give a lot of credit to the dialogue actually made this show hit for me in that. Yeah, it worked, but it wasn't hyper realistic, but that was almost done on purpose. And again, it felt very much like this show did a good job of really feeling like a comic book. Not a comic book adaptation. 100%. It didn't feel like an adaptation of a comic. It was like, yo, this is just an animated comic, basically, for better or for worse. But especially with the dramatic, cheesy lines. I don't know. That really
It didn't work for me.
I was a huge fan. Like every time B said, "Oh, my stars and garters," I'm like, this is ridiculous, and I love it. Keep talking your shit, Beast.
Like literally everything you're talking about, I went 100% the other way. I was just like,
you ran for the hills.
Yeah, it's so cringy and like awkward, and like we're in 2024. Like it doesn't.
This
have
show
to
is
be
called
this way,
X-Men
guys.
'97.
Like Jim, the guy who wrote the Infinity Gauntlet, like he loved to write like this too in the comic books. It's very like faux Shakespearean. I think I've talked about this before.
Exactly. I loved it.
I don't know. I don't enjoy that. I'm a brevity and clarity man myself. Shout out to Mr. Arfwitson, our my 7th grade or no, what 10th grade English teacher. He stressed the importance of brevity and clarity, and I think that stuck with me too much. And
his name was Mr. Futsin?
Arfwitson. I think it's a Swedish name.
What? Was he a comic book character?
Right.
He was the nicest, gentlest human being ever. Shout out to him. Retired about 10 years ago. My sister
he has no taste in comic books. So.
My sister also had him 7 years later, and probably is one of her like top 3 teachers in her high school career. So shout out to him.
F that brevity stuff. That's good if you're writing a memo, but if we're telling a story, I want beautiful adjectives. I want extended compound sentences and run-ons and shit.
All right, Nathaniel Hawthorne.
Give me that. I want
20 years from now, one of your students is going to be doing their own video podcast, like in a VR world, talking about Mr. Nakamura really showed me how to appreciate the real things in life.
And it'll be a
normal, natural dialogue. And that's why I cannot appreciate any of the beautiful artwork that is surrounding me in life.
It's going to be a 10-minute pod because he just gets to the point. The movie came out. It was good. I liked it. The colors were nice. The end.
Cue the music.
Like and subscribe.
Brief and to the point. What about y'all?
All right, Brian, what about the show worked for you?
Exactly what Savon said. The very fact that the show is over the top, deliberately over the top. It did not shy away from any of that. The grandiosity of this show is what makes it so good. And I think that extends particularly in 2 places, right? One is the soap opera level of all the drama that's going on. Every single character is in a tryst. Like Scott and Jean.
Good God.
Jean and Logan. Logan gets a kiss from Jean, and then there's Madeline, right?
And Morph in there.
And then they got their long lost son.
Yeah, I don't know.
Does
Morph count?
Yeah, Morph definitely likes Wolverine.
Morph has
Logan,
unrequited love for Wolverine. He turns into Jean Grey to tell him, "I love you." Like. What could be more over the top than a mutant transforming into this guy's like unrequited love interest in the moment of his like biggest peril where he's on life support basically. And then I haven't even talked about Rogue and Magneto and Gambit. Like even Storm and Forge, that one threw me for a loop. I was like,
that was great.
Jubilee and
I'm not used to this relationship. Like,
who is Storm date? Does Storm date anybody in the shows?
Well, sometimes she does have a thing with Forge.
T'Challa,
yeah, sometimes she has a thing with Forge, but lately she's kind of been married to like Black Panther, and they have a whole thing.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and they have like
I liked it with
the
Forge.
superpower couple thing going on.
But Jubilee and your boy, literally
Jubilee and Sunspot, like that. To me, that's new. I don't think that's happened in the comic.
Nah, because Sunspot is new to the '97 series. I'm pretty sure. Pretty sure they
So that. Like everybody was on the verge of like using their powers to destroy someone or to like blow off someone's clothes so they could just get busy. like there was so much scintillating tension in all the best ways. Like it was so ridiculous that it was great. It was just like popcorn fun. Oh yeah,
Charles and his bird bay,
Magneto.
his space bird bay. But then Magneto and Charles basically both have their respective beards in the show, and then these two are just brothers. I'm like, all right, cool. So were they also roommates
in their minds?
Yeah, were they also roommates back in the '80s who just like, okay, dude. Sure.
It was a different time.
I have brothers. I have actual brothers and men I consider my brothers. I have never looked at my brothers that way. I am my brother's keeper, but
It's
But
like, "Ugh, don't hold me in the water like
yeah,
that."
but to your point, Brian, to your right, with the soap
So
opera stuff clicks.
so there's the soap opera level stuff, right? Which is going to work for a lot of people just on its own. And
Mm-hmm.
then you have the grandiose comic book storylines popping off at the same time. Like we get Genosha here, a giant massacre in Genosha, like 3-headed sentinels. Right, we get Bastion, who's a crazy idea, like a mutant sentinel love child sort of thing, who's trying to wipe out mutants. We get Asteroid M, which is an outrageous prospect, but very comic booky, right? Like Magneto ending the electromagnetic pulse of the entire planet. Like these are so over the top, super, super like comic booky. There's no other way to
He
describe them.
flies to the
It's
pole
just
in his drawers and then just says, "Nah, man, F it." Boom. I'm like, oh, it was so
yeah,
ridiculous. But just
so over the
just
top.
silver mane, muscular, just mutant man in his underwear, just floating through the cosmos of the planet, through the aurora borealis, and then just EMPing everybody. It's equal parts ridiculous, equal parts. This is the dopest shit I've seen.
Oh, exactly. It's that I think it's that feeling of like, wow, like this, they really took it there. That element of surprise, which I think works so well for this show, coming at a time when we're oversaturated with superhero movies, a lot of which are mediocre or worse, right? And they're not really refreshing. They're kind of just doing the same thing on the hamster wheel over and over, like self-awareness, like quippy one-liners, sarcasm, and the best that we can do with live action superheroes in a way that doesn't bother audiences, right? You can sort of almost feel the tenuousness of the creators of a lot of these projects, and then you
You're
bring
trying to
us
make
to
so many
X-Men
different people
97.
happy. You're trying to make so many competing parties
Yeah.
happy that you don't really get to lean into what makes the genre have potential. But
yeah, they're overstuffed. They've been messed with by so many different hands already, and you don't walk away feeling very satisfied. And then you come in with X-Men 97, and it's like a breath of fresh air. It's a reminder of why people fell in love with the X-Men in the first place, why people love comics to begin with, because it's just so much pure, unadulterated fun in all of its pulpy goodness, right? And the show not once shied away from any of that or tried to replicate anything that these modern superhero movies are doing. It's just a completely different beast, and I think that is why it's been so popular and such a treat for any superhero fan out there.
Agreed. They're not ashamed of their source material. That's really like, and there's some ridiculous stuff that happens in this show, for better or for worse. But like, when you really think about it, right? A Shi'ar empire of space bird people with these ridiculous costumes, and the show didn't try to make that more realistic or make it more digestible or reimagine it for our audience. To say, no, these people have this very clearly 80s, 90s comic book aesthetic to the design and everything about them. And F it, we're not going to be ashamed of that at all. Weird blue skin dude with tights on in space. F it. Bird Queen lady with the whole random space civilization that just, and then Earth is just doing Earth shit, and they calling Earth the ghetto and all that. F it. Like the them not being ashamed of ultimately what their source material is, which a lot of comic book adaptation stuff can be, I think is what really helped knock this out the park. Regardless of whether you're always a fan of it, Wes, I think it's authentic and people like authenticity. This didn't feel like something, and nostalgia bait can very much fall into this, right? Of, oh, we just made this in a what is it called? With like the people, it's like it's artificial.
Oh yeah, focus group.
Thank you. There we go. This doesn't feel like some just focus group. Let's tick the boxes and pump out something that's not authentic. They clearly put passion. Like I think one of the people involved in the animation of the show, or like somewhere in the production of the show, was a big Marvel versus Capcom fan. And so some of the moves that Cyclops does in the show were inspired from moves he does in the game. Or like there's a partial the dude like say, I used to play Cyclops.
When he does the large beam blast, that's definitely from the game.
So like, but point is that kind of shit takes passionate people, not focused group corpo nonsense. And the proof is in the pudding of what the end result is. It's not everybody's show, but it's authentic, and authenticity will speak for itself in terms of you winning people over.
Fair enough.
Have we won you over yet, Wes?
By no means was this a bad show.
We know it's not a bad show. You don't gotta say that.
Yeah, no.
It's definitely not Arcane, right? Like, it's definitely not
No.
Blue Eye Samurai, which are very much more in the traditional, maybe not traditional, but more modern sensibility of
What's
dramatic TV shows.
It's hard for me to compare because I'm watching them for completely
It's
different
just
reasons.
very different. Yeah.
Like, if I'm deciding to pop on some Blue Eye Samurai, that's because it's a new IP, it's fresh, it likes into the bloody action samurai. But when I watch X-Men 97, that's just not at all what I'm even interested in. But I get it. I get like what would make Blue Eye Samurai more appealing than X-Men. If you're not an X-Men fan or a comic book fan, this show probably just won't be for you, period. And that's okay.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think there were lots of good things I talked about, like so many of the parts that I enjoyed. I didn't even talk about like just the like, I felt like there was a lot of there were moments where like certain characters could express their vulnerability and what they were struggling with, you know, with Cyclops and Jean Grey especially, I think, but you know, some of the other characters too. And so like the show allowed some of the characters to breathe in a cool way. I thought a lot of it though, because of the flowery language, didn't allow them to actually be that vulnerable. Like it was just more like, I'm more interested in saying this in like a weird way or like a, you know, a speechy way than I am in actually. Yeah,
that's real.
You know, and so I think those moments were like, oh, we're not actually getting to the heart of like what's the feeling here. We're just getting to like the words here, you know, and so I wanted it to go one step deeper at times. Again, this is maybe unrealistic expectations. This is like a show that was originally for kids. Although I don't know that this one was aimed at kids.
Hell no.
It's definitely aimed at us.
Yeah, so it, you know, I think it is fair a little bit to expect it to go somewhat deeper in terms of the way that it went, but yeah, again, I'm not saying it was bad or anything like that. I wanted to talk a little bit and kind of refocus. We know that X-Men is oftentimes sort of you know, in the way that sci-fi can kind of stand in for society, X-Men sometimes stands in for what it means to be part of the LGBTQI community, what it means to be part of a minority group, whether that's race or, you know, something else. Did you feel like this show incorporated those things and did it do it well? Or did you feel like this show was mainly just about the like the interplay and personal connections and then, you know, the kind of fight 'em up, bang 'em up action scenes? Brian, what were you seeing from this one?
I mean, through and through, X-Men has always been that kind of allegory, I think. For sure. And I think that really comes alive late in the season when Professor X decides to let baby girl go off and do her own thing because he's got to come back for his kids. He's got to come back to Earth for his kids, and he finally comes tete-a-tete with Magneto, right? His ideological opposite. Yeah, they're tete-a-tete in tete. And they have their argument about, you know, what is better, you know, is it better to assimilate, is it better to be self-determining, right? Is it better to break off from humanity, is it better to do away with humanity because of all the evil that they have perpetrated against their kind, right? And these are the kind of questions that are at the core of, I think, basically any marginalized group out there. You know, it's a question, it's an existential question about like how we are going to live as a group. How should we exist in this world that despises us? And you know, I think that's brought even more to the point when they're in each other's heads and they are kind of reliving a flashback moment together at the bar, and they're like, hey, you know, I have powers. I moved. I can like be in other people's minds, and like Magneto's a little cautious, like, you know, carefully poking his, you know, oh wait, I can move metallic objects, and they have this moment of revelation with each other, which to me just felt probably very much like a queer moment for two people revealing to each other about their actual identity and trying to form a bond based on that identity that is not respected by the people around them. And so, when that happens in the show, like, you can't, I don't know, I think it's like impossible to be like, oh yeah, the people producing this show have no idea what point they're trying to make. I think they're specifically trying to make it feel exactly like those real life moments that marginalized people have when they're bonding over their identities.
Well, did you feel like it was then too far? Not too far. Was it like too much about that and not enough about the story? Or did you feel like that worked within context of story? Because I thought that worked within the story.
Well, they go hand in hand, right? Yeah, like that's the whole story of X-Men ultimately is Charles and Magneto's relationship and the fallout of their relationship, and what does that mean for the people who follows and leads them, right? Like, that's the core root of the show.
Brian's like criticized certain properties for like kind of checking the boxes around like, well, yeah, we addressed that DEI topic, and yeah, we addressed that, like diversity. Minority groups.
Yeah, I mean, well, it's like,
this did not feel like that.
Yeah, well, it depends on how you go about it, right? Like, because I've been in the camp that I think X-Men's been very inconsistent in how they handle that allegory, right? Of, them being a placeholder for marginalized groups. Like, I think the X-Men movies aren't as good about it. They're not good about that allegory. But the show, and then even then, my question was, and I'll be super honest, I've always thought, what can y'all do to make people with superpowers experience be comparable to someone who is has a closeted sexual identity, or is a minority, like being like, I'm a black man. I'm like, all right, how are y'all going to try and make this feel comparable in a way that's maybe not patronizing or just not realistic? Because ultimately they have superpowers, like Storm controlling the weather. Right. Like, B, you're not a second-class citizen. Like, you can,
you're a god.
But that's something I think X-Men has kind of always struggled of striking that balance. The way they did the Sentinel Primes and the looming existential threat they possessed in the episode when they really pop off. So I think that's like towards the end, the first episode, Tolerance's Extinction episode. That was probably the most terrified I felt for the X-Men in any X-Men property I've ever seen, because it didn't matter how strong you were. It didn't matter what your mutant power, because I also think X-Men is bad about not addressing the in-mutant community double standard of like some mutants can pass and some can't. Like Magneto, when it's all said and done, you're a dude with white hair. You can pass as a human. You're not in the same boat as someone like Beast or Morph, or even Morph can shapeshift, but like someone like Beast.
Or Leech.
Yeah, but someone like Leech and like the Morlocks, I wish the show explored that more of like, there's definitely mutant privilege. Not everybody looks totally human and has god level powers like you, Magneto. Some people have crappy powers and look like freaks. And that's, I wish they addressed that. But yeah, but the idea of the Sentinels being regular, radicalized human beings who voluntarily signed up for this, even though they don't know the extent of it, and then they basically just have like a built-in mutant detector that makes them start hunting mutants down. That was terrifying, because I've always felt, you're not really in the same threat because of the nature of y'all powers. But when all the X-Men are just getting jumped by all these Sentinels in the streets because so many people in the regular world have been radicalized, and that felt really real, right? It doesn't matter how strong you are. If society at large is that heavily against you, your power doesn't matter. They really sold me on that. So when you have the scene of Nightcrawler and Wolverine, two certified badasses, right? Like, these are big dog X-Men. They don't just get bullied around. They are fighting for their life in the X-Mansion against these Sentinel Primes. I thought that was terrifying. It let the mutants use their powers in a fun way. But when Wolverine is going all out slashing people and they're just regenerating and ready to come back for more, and there's like an infinite amount of them, I was like, this is awful.
You are in trouble.
You are in trouble. There's no mutant, now they can detect you. There is no hiding or passing. Even the scene where is it Roberto? Is that his name?
Yeah.
Like when Roberto's mom, even the whole thing with his mom, like I actually thought that was one of the best ways that they kind of talked about the discrimination piece of having a accepting parent at first, but then it's kind of a conditional acceptance of let's keep up public appearances. And when it was all said and done, and when the mom was pressured, she ultimately caved. That had to have hit home for a lot of people. That is a disturbingly relatable experience of having support from your family, but it is conditional, right? Like, and so I really,
as long as it doesn't affect me.
exactly. And so it's like, because at first you're like, oh, the mom doesn't care.
My wallet.
Yeah, at first the mom doesn't care, but the mom cares about public appearances. And it's like, how do you,
Right.
because when your boy Joe Magneto would say, yo, my mom handed me over to the Sentinels, I'm like, what you want that? Like, what else is there to say? If my mama handed me over, I'd be devastated. So, I really want to shout out X-Men 97 for doing a good job of really selling me on the mutants have it hard bit, because sometimes that can be hard to sell. Like, oh, I have powers, freak. Oh, I got him in an accident. Oh, that's different. Right?
Yeah. And all of that stuff felt of today's world, right? Like casual bigots transforming into sleeper cell agents, right? Basically radicalized, and now they're coming for you in droves.
Like that
feels like the last 10 years.
That felt relatable. So, like I said it before, I want to really triple, quadruple, quintuple down. They sold me on the discrimination piece, and historically X-Men is not very good at me about that. But but so many times I'm sitting here sympathizing with Magneto, like, why y'all keep proving Magneto right? But then, but all the stuff that happens, I'm like, but like when Bastion gives that speech, right, about how part of his, he's talking to like Doom and Zemo and all the other big bads of like the Marvel world, and he's talking about how part of the zero tolerance, which by the way, Operation Zero Tolerance couldn't be more on the nose, right? But when he has that speech about how the idea is to overflow the news media with bad news about mutants, because if you overflow the media with negativity, people become apathetic. If they don't have skin in the game, I'm like, dude.
Next level.
I'm trying to watch the show for fun. I don't need this to be tied to exactly what we actively watch on the news. But again, that's
why do I feel so much anguish right now?
But that's real, man. That's really a tactic. You overflow people with negativity, and it's hard. People get empathy burnout, and I just, that was really good writing. And so, Wes, to your point about, like, I know you weren't the biggest fan of some of how the dialogue went. I felt like these other things made that did a good job of selling me on the actual stakes part of like what was actually happening in this world. Because I agree, without that, it's just flowery dialogue that's kind of like just fluff. But I think the substance was in how the world actually reacts and treats, and how we see that as an audience. So that helped with them having really dramatic dialogue.
All right, I want to nice, and I want to go back to kind of the main story arc of the show, which is like how the X-Men are under threat, how the world is under a threat, and how like those kind of different forces are playing out. So now we've got some major ending of the season spoilers coming up. So if you haven't watched it yet, now is your chance to go watch it and come back, and we'll carry on. So Bastion ends up sort of being the main big bad, sinister a little bit. Like, it's sort of unclear at first, like, who's kind of in charge and who thinks they're in charge and who's not in charge. But I think ultimately we realized that, like, Bastion is kind of the guy with the heavier powers here. And the kind of real bone to pick with the X-Men over being shunned as a kid, or what he thought was being rejected. His stories, he kind of points out like this own myth making that we have in our heads, and how we build ourselves up.
And are you speaking from experience?
This is where my brain and my personal like situation right now, context, is not working. I found the last part of the season where we're starting to get into all the conflicts and like the different factions that are starting to develop actually became a little bit more convoluted than I was able to keep up with in the way that I was watching, or the way that my brain was set up right now. So and I want to give a huge caveat here, because like maybe other people didn't have this experience, but I was just like a little bit like confused at times. Like, wait, where did this character go, and why did they end up over here, and what are they referring to? And there was a lot of things that they were referencing from previous episodes that I just like couldn't remember, and I don't know. And the situation kept changing in terms of who was with who and who was aligned with where, and where did Asteroid M come from, and were they on Asteroid M, or like which team was on Asteroid M and which team was like not, and which, there was like all these things happening all of the time. And it became just a lot for me to follow. And I just sort of had to like turn that part of my brain off, trying to figure it out, and just be like, whatever, like, let's just watch it, I guess, and we'll find out where it goes. But I think that to me was just a little bit of a drawback to how they wanted to do the end of the season. They wanted all of these big set pieces. They wanted all of these like conflicts to be going on at the same time. but I think in the end they sort of lost me a little bit in being able to keep track of it all. That's the only thing that I would say. I mean, I think there was a ton of great things happening in terms of like the jeopardy that different X-Men were in, trying to, you know, figure out like, well, we're trying to save Professor X and Magneto, but we're also trying to fight off this thing. And like Magneto's did his thing where he like turned off the Earth, basically the whole magnetic field of the Earth with his big EMP, you know, and that creates a lot of problems for everybody. Are we trying to save the humans? Are we trying to protect the humans? Are we just trying to protect mutants? Are we trying to take down Bastion? All this stuff is going on in the last, like, you know, 4 or 5 episodes. So I don't know, Brian, what did you think about that last like stretch run of the show?
Yeah, I don't disagree with you, Wes. There was a lot happening, a lot happening. I mean, like Magneto rips out.
I didn't even mention like Cable, right? Like Cable's in there.
Yeah, Cable's in the mix.
There's a lot happening.
Like trying to do God knows what, explain different things happening from his timeline. He's got his whole dynamic with his parents. You know, Jean and Madeline have a weird sort of
days of our lives
bond thing going on. I was gonna say, like, one of the biggest moments that, or at least I think should have been one of the biggest moments, was Magneto ripping out Wolverine's adamantium.
Ooh!
Pulling it out from his skeleton and leaving him a mangled mess. Moments after Wolverine actually claws him through the abdomen. And we got blood. We got a lot of blood for once in X-Men animation history. And yet those two things were just a blip on this full map, this smorgasbord of X-Men, just like Bukake.
You're such a wordsmith,
what?
Brian.
We didn't need that.
Yeah, such a wordsmith. Thank you, thank you, Wes.
I mean, like,
cancel this man.
How else could you think about it? It's just like so much.
There's lots of other ways I could have thought about it.
All you can eat buffet.
Didn't you say smorgasbord?
That was good.
You were already doing great.
Poo-poo platter.
You were doing so great.
A smorgasbord that erupts in your face.
Stop. You know, as much as I would want to disagree with y'all, this is what I'll say, Wes. And maybe we can
wait. I just want to say I'm glad it wasn't just me.
Well,
like I thought maybe this was just me because this is a personal problem, right?
So, like,
I also don't fully understand how Magneto was able to create Asteroid M. They don't fully.
Oh, they didn't explain. Okay, so I thought that was.
Happens like he's ripping Earth out of a lake. Like what? How is he maintaining that? How does he put it together? How is he launching it into the atmosphere?
What was it for?
Same thing for the EMP, right? The EMP he just like goes nuts and does it. And like even its aftermath, you don't get the full impact of what is happening until
it just
somebody
kills the Sentinel Primes,
mentions it later. Like, oh, we have no power because of what Magneto did. Like so much,
but the airplane still works.
So much is happening. Yeah. The Blackbird still works somehow. Like Beast is still doing his thing somehow. Like so that there's a ton of stuff that's going on, and you know I had to do the same thing as you, Wes. I had to like turn off some of this critical, logical thinking and just ride with it. Like it was still a fun ride, but I think any one of these plot points individually could have worked in isolation. It's for whatever reason the producers went with let's mix all these things together. Let's have Bastion and Sinister together. Let's have Asteroid M as a plot during all of this.
Mm-hmm. So I
did better for worse.
Yeah, I did a little quick Google thing. I think the Asteroid M, whatever that was, they explained Asteroid M in the original series. So I guess that was already a thing.
So you're supposed to know already.
I guess that's one of those, like, you should be already, if you've watched the older series, you should already be familiar of how we got Asteroid M. So that, but this is what I will say. A lot of the plot stuff made sense because there was moments, and especially towards the end, like the Bastion stuff, it made sense, but I had to like kind of stop for a second, actually kind of shift the gear of my brain up a little bit. My critique, it's twofold.
I just turned mine off.
No. So my guess.
Yeah,
so,
like that. We were like, nope.
No, my critique for y'all is two-part.
He's like, upgrade.
No, it's a two-part.
You went Elden Ring on it.
Yeah, I think how it actually coherently made sense when you sat and thought about it a little bit more, it did from a writing perspective. But I think the problem wasn't that. It was that wasn't consistent with how much brain power you had to use earlier in the show, you know?
Oh yeah,
like, you know
exactly.
how,
It just ramped up.
Like, you know how some shows establish themselves early as like, hey man, you better catch on to every detail because this is a dense show. And that's okay. Like Shogun, right? This show turned into like a Shogun Game of Thrones level. You got to pay attention in the last like 3 episodes. And I think that's a bit of a whiplash for folk, because I was able to like piece it together, but I ain't gonna lie, I had to be like, hold on. This got real. A lot started happening. It makes sense, but I need to slow down a lot and actually piece together like, okay, Master Mode's the Sentinel thing. The Master Mode exists in the future. They sent the thing back. I was like, I understood Bastion, not the first time. I had to sit down and like grab a piece of paper and kind of like actually like, okay.
Oh, you did the detective thing. You put up the board with the strings and push pins.
I needed a visual
Timeline.
I needed a visual aid because a lot is happening. And so it's like, or even the 2-part plan, right? The plan of them having 2 parties go after actually makes a lot of sense and actually was really good writing, because each party could complete their goal, but that doesn't get the larger desired outcome. That's why Cyclops blasted your boy, right? When he said, there's still not time for this group. Like, I thought that was good writing, but you have to ramp up your writing intensity casually. You can't have this go from you need to be level 4 engaged paying attention to level 9. Otherwise, you're going to be confused. Like, if they had
Yeah, maybe that's what it was.
No, you can't.
I was at level 4.
But ultimately, it's me agreeing with
filler episodes where Jubilee's off in Mojo World.
That was so fun, though.
And like Storm just like making goo eyes with Forge, and then all of a sudden 5 plot lines going off at the same time in the last 3 episodes.
Yeah, so it was a pacing thing. Like, I think if they had just had another 2 episodes, they could have stretched that out in a way where it didn't feel as overwhelming. But I hope that that's a critique, or I hope that's some feedback they have for the next season. But ultimately, I agree with you, Wes. It got too dense at the end relative to what they set up the show to be. I don't want a show to suddenly go from chill, your brain half off, to if you're not taking notes or watching every line of dialogue, you're going to miss important stuff. You got to decide that early on. You can't whiplash back and forth. Otherwise, your audience just doesn't really know. Like, some shows I could lock in. Some shows I could kind of, be half locked in. Nothing's wrong with either, but you got to set the tone early.
Brad, you want to say anything?
No, I just want to comment on how happy I am for you, Wes, that you finally got a win here from Savon. He actually co-signed. Maybe I'm putting words into your mouth, but he co-signed what you said.
No, I co-sign. I mean, I want to
enjoy it, Wes. Savor this moment.
Hey, Wes, you've been saying a lot of ice cold stuff, but also that's what makes this pod work. You and I are such diametrically different people. But I'm with you, player.
All right. I want to wrap up our show. I don't want people to have to also, ramp up their schedules to 2 hours just to watch one show with us or to hear one show. So, let's talk about our favorite mutant moment. I think we've already mentioned my favorite moment. My favorite moment was Magneto just being like, I'm back alive. I'm taking my moment and just like EMPing the whole world and just shutting it down and being like,
I'm back, snitches.
In his Fruit of the Looms.
He said, I am taking my toys. You are all done. Everybody's on timeout.
He didn't put a robe on or nothing.
Right.
That's some big D energy.
Right. Big M.
Brian, what is your favorite moment?
So I'm gonna say my second favorite moment was also from Magneto, when he straight up goes like, I've wanted to say this a long time, Charles, but shut up.
It was such a look, Wes. That's when the Magneto actor literally swapped from his dramatic Shakespearean to just a dude. Shut up. Like, that really felt like a dude telling his friend, man, shut up, bro. Like, I'm sick and tired of you, man. Stop running your mouth.
But the moment for me that did it was mid-season. And this brings me to my point about them doing Gambit dirty. Like,
oh, you think they did Gambit dirty?
The fan favorites, Gambit and Wolverine, got the short end of the stick in this season. But at least Gambit went out with a bang. Literally, he's impaled.
Remember it.
Remember my name.
He saved Genosha, kind of.
Infusing that Sentinel mess.
Yeah, with
with
Gambit
kinetic
powers.
energy and exploding it like that. What a way to go. At least he went out with, in proper dramatic form. But man, they took Rogue away from him. He didn't have a lot to do. And then Wolverine got mangled. Ugh.
Did you see the post-credit scene?
My favorites. What's that?
Did you see the post-credit scene?
Oh, yeah. I mean, he's going to come back. Gambit's going to come back as one of the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse.
Oh, you don't seem very impressed.
I mean, come on. Like, weren't you guys glad Apocalypse was not the big bad in this season?
Well, he had his shine. He had his time in the original series as like a big villain, So they kind of did the Apocalypse. But and
they're gonna do it again.
But they're gonna do a 3-era Apocalypse arc. That's gonna be sick. We get young Apocalypse in Egypt, modern Apocalypse, post Genosha, and then whatever that future stuff is. Like, that's one of those. Apocalypse isn't always one of my favorite characters, but I'm excited for that. But I know we're talking different stuff, but I'm bugged for that.
I would love if they did a true Age of Apocalypse storyline where they, he just wipes the slate clean, and then we see alternative universe versions of the X-Men and everybody, and all the sides are different. And I think that would be cool. But we'll see where they bring it.
Indeed.
All right. You're both excited for that. Have they announced when or what season 2 is going to be?
No, but it's into production.
Okay.
And then season 3 is in development, so we're getting it. Just a matter of when.
All right, sounds good. Friends, that'll do it for
Hold on, Wes, what was your favorite moment?
Oh, I know. Who, me?
The EMP.
I like the EMP the best. Yeah.
What was your favorite moment, Savon?
Shit, just Magneto. Honestly, all of the different Marvel cameos, they decided, hey, we about to throw everybody and they grandma up in this thing. Just the fact that we got to have Dr. Doom talking his stuff, Baron Zemo, Captain America, low-key get punked by Rogue. By the way, that is not the Steve Rogers Captain America. That is government shield Cap. I don't care. Shield, not shield. 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 Daredevil and Spider-Man doing their thing in the different neighborhoods. I actually liked all the various cameos. But honestly, for me, Cyclops, just all of his moments, they've redeemed Cyclops. He got done so dirty in those Fox X-Men movies. They really made him they really hold him in his own series. Cyclops is back. He has been redeemed. He is now one of my favorite X-Men again. And I hope that they translate this badassery into other stuff he appears in, because he's supposed to be their Captain America, and he was turning up all series. When my favorite moment, Cyclops gave that speech on the news at the interview saying it's a good thing
got real.
When it's a good thing we're not like y'all, because you wouldn't even be alive. You wouldn't stand a chance. I was like, talk that shit, Scott. Talk that shit. Look, in my brain, the Ether music was playing. The Ether beat, or the not like us, the not like us beat is playing, and Cyclops
mustard
is
on
just
the beat.
Mustard on the beat, and Cyclops just like, man, sometimes you gotta pop out and show them. Certified boogeyman.
Hey, you know what moment really
he's
I'll
taking
never
a heel
forget.
turn. They're setting him up for some different relationships in the future for sure. Writing is on the wall. The Emma Frost is coming.
Oh yeah, they even had her activate her second power too, which was cool.
I'll say the moment I'll never forget though is when Magneto takes the UN Council and says, "Don't disappoint me.
Don't make me let you say. Don't make me let you down.
Yeah. Oh man, what a classic! Because it's like twofold, right? It's like, don't let me let you down metaphorically, but also literally, don't let me let you down, because like I'll kill you right now. Like,
Magneto had bars that entire series. Half the show was me. Half the time of me as a viewer was just saying talk that shit to either Scott or Magneto, because the whole series I'm like, yeah, talk your shit. Talk that.
Yo, this show had a lot of quotables.
Bars for days.
If you don't start every podcast with
to me my X-Men. To me my confidently wrong. Well, I'll be saying that to me for new.
That was too much.
All
right, friends, that'll do it for us. Next episode, we're gonna talk about Furiosa, the next installment in the Mad Max epic series. It's out in theaters right now, so go watch it, and then we're gonna talk about it. It's a prequel to Mad Max Fury Road. It's gotten a ton of positive buzz, so we'll see how we like it and how you like it, and we'll be enjoying that. So let us know what you thought of X-Men in the comments in Instagram when we post this. It'll be great. What did you think? Was it too confusing at the end, or were you like, nah, this is exactly how I want my X-Men to be? Friends, we're out of here. See you later. Bye.
Excelsior.
Stan Lee. R.I.P. Oh, look. There's a Kaya.
Oh, your baby?
Boop.
Oh, look at the little baby. Hey, Kaya.
Hi,
Kaya, can you wave?
Yeah, she waving.
Wave.
And look at Nyla just in the background, chilling.
Hello, Nyla. All right, guys. Talk to you later. Bye.